Good evening, good morning, whenever the fuck you're listening. Welcome to another episode of Tailgate Trash Talk postseason form, and we're doing post combine talk tonight mostly. Um, Alongside with me is Mr. Gary Freeze himself. Gary, how's it going, bud?
It's going, buddy. Good to be
Good.
back. Took a couple
Yeah,
weeks off, and
yeah,
here we are. We're back.
we're back. Um, the main thing that we were going to talk about tonight is obviously the combine and our projections, our picks. We have our pre-combine picks, and then obviously we have our post-combine picks with everything. And I told you earlier today,
The
you're
Underwear Olympics changes things, right?
exact where the boys became men, and some people might have improved their draft stock, and vice versa.
Yeah,
And
man.
I think the big thing that a lot of people are
Yeah,
talking about, like
yeah.
the hand size, I don't know.
We were talking about it earlier, and I've talked about hand size for 20 years, man. Like paying attention to the combine and shit, and forever, it's felt like one of those true measures of like your ability to protect the football because Dante Culpepper had like 8.25 inch hands, and he leads the league in fumbles. Like he's the leader in Minnesota Vikings history in fumbles, and he led the league like several years that he played, including when he was down in Miami. And there's other examples, but like he's the big example that everybody goes to when they talk about 8.5, 8.25, because he was such a good quarterback, but he had a fumbling problem.
Yeah.
And Kenny Pickett goes and gets his hands measured, and I believe they're the same size as I believe Dante had 8.5, and I know Kenny Pickett measured at 8.5. So finally this year, I decide, fuck it, I'm gonna see what my hand size is, right? Like I've never done it before. I'm just curious, and they measure from thumb to pinky.
Well, I never knew this. I
Yeah, so
never
it's
knew this.
essentially it's your ability to like
Just grip.
close around the ball, right? So I go ahead and measure mine, and I'm like, well, fuck, I better give some NFL GMs a call. I got
Right?
9.5 inch hands, bro.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
So you initially did it, and so obviously, just out of curiosity as well, I went ahead and did it, and I measured right at 9 inches. So it's just like, sign me up as well. Let's go.
Go.
Let's fucking go.
If that's the measure of being a good quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, why
Now,
not?
mind you, Kenny Pickett is aware of his hand size, and he wears gloves all the time.
Yeah.
In most games, he'll wear a glove. Even in warm weather games, it's some instances in like humid stadiums. I believe he wore it in Miami. But he's aware, right, of his hand size, and he takes precautions. Teddy Bridgewater wore gloves all the time. So
He still does too, I believe.
yeah, exactly. So like even Tom Brady would wear a glove in the winter
Mhm.
in Foxborough. So it's not just a hand size thing. It's like an awareness thing of being able to protect the football. And Kenny Pickett takes precautions. So I think teams are going to take that into consideration with him. He didn't really have a fumbling problem in college, but college is a little bit different than the pros where you're taught and preached and you're trained to strip the ball and those sorts of things. So I get it. It's different. It's not the same, but it's interesting. The things that people latch onto are very interesting around combine time.
Exactly. And one of the interesting things too, coming from all the talk about Pickett's hand size, then you scroll back to 2 years ago when Joey B,
Yeah.
Tiger King was in the combine and everything else, and he was a potential number one draft pick, and he has what, 9?
Yeah.
Right around 9 inch hand size, and
Yeah.
his tweet about it was, guess I'm going into retirement because of my hand size. He just led the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl.
Right.
So,
and there's a difference too, right? The player makes a difference too, right? Kenny Pickett's not in the conversation to be the number one pick. He doesn't have the same film as Joe Burrow had, those sorts of things. So like, I get that, and we talked about it, right? The combine is not a place where you're gonna discover a lot of new things about people. You're not gonna make draft choice based on the combine. And if you do, you're fooling yourself.
Yeah.
But it confirms or, raises questions that you need to go back to the film and look at, those sorts of things. So, like, his hand size is not, in my opinion, if you like Kenny Pickett, his hand size isn't going to change your opinion of him, right? You're gonna preach every day in practice, protect football, 2 hands on the ball at all times, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah. But it is funny how much they talk about hand size when it comes to quarterbacks at the combine.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for Dante Culpepper. Like, he's got to hear his name every fucking year at combine time because he's like the biggest example of a dude that had small hands. Tremendous quarterback, but he had a lot of fumbles.
Yeah, for sure. So, real quick, we'll get back to the combine talk. And for everyone that's watching, listening, we do have a big announcement coming up at the end of the episode. So stay tuned with us for that announcement at the end of this episode. But before we talk combine talk here, let's talk about what's happening in college football right now, and that is some potential rule changes. And a lot of it has to do with the clock and time takes from the game and everything else, and just the stoppage of clocks in certain situations. So a couple that I want to touch base on, and if you have more, we can definitely touch base on those. But one is the clock will start once the toe or leather touches the football for the kickoff instead of when the receiver touches it. We got that one. We also have another one that the clock will keep on running after an incomplete pass or after a first down. Because in college, first downs, if you make a first down, clock stops. And then two that I really want to dive into. I know we've had so many discussions about these this last year on the show, is faking injuries and also the targeting.
Targeting is a big one.
Yeah, targeting is a big one, and we talked. I think we pretty much talked almost every single episode.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
On the targeting.
Ad nauseum. There's always one every week.
Yeah. So let's go back and let's touch base on some of the clock issues. So what are your thoughts so far, and what they're suggesting as far as starting the clock on kickoffs and then stopping the clock, or I'm sorry, keeping the clock going on incomplete passes and first downs?
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's, even in the NFL, after an incompletion, the clock doesn't start till the ball is snapped. Now, college is saying we're going to start the clock when the ball gets set, right? So the ball goes in the stands. They're not going to run like 30 seconds off. But once the ball is set, the clock's going to start. So you're talking about at least, 8, 10, 12 seconds per play now that's going to come off the clock. The kickoffs is interesting too, because if you kick it out of the back of the end zone,
you essentially lose about what,
3, 4, yeah, right, per kickoff per game. And in high scoring games, that can make a difference. But also think about maybe the end of a game or the end of a half, right? At the end of a game, you do, you have the laterals and all those. But if you just run the clock out on you boom it out of the back of the end zone, potentially you run that last couple of seconds off, then, and I think there's going to be some discussion of that and some nuance, because they've already said, like, the incompletion thing is not going to apply inside of it's either anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. They've said they're going to stop the clock if it's that close to the end of the half, that sort of thing, the end of the first half or the end of the game. First downs, they say, will likely still stop the clock when it's that late in the game, etc. I like it though, right? I say all that long-winded stuff to say I like the idea of speeding the game up to a certain extent, and I like their justification for it. Now, do they truly have this in mind, or is this just lip service? I don't know, but I like the way that they're framing it. They're not saying this is about player safety. They're not saying this is to take collisions out of the game. They're not saying this is to do this, that, and the other. They're framing it as exposures, right? Mm-hmm. And I like that, if that's truly the motivation for it, because you can have rules like targeting and all that other stuff that come into play, but you're talking about a game that is violent by nature,
Mhm.
and there's collisions on every single play, up and down the board, some more violent than others. But if you're gonna look at this from the perspective of, instead of 75 to 100 exposures per game for each team, taking it down to closer to NFL level, then you really are making a difference, right? In terms of player safety, you're reducing some of those collisions per game. I like that on the surface. What I don't think I'm going to like is having to get used to college games being much quicker, right? And stopping the ball after a first down, those sorts of things. It makes the ends of halves very, very interesting, because
Sure.
we can see teams go back and forth up and down the field because they just keep chunking and chunking and chunking, and no time comes off the clock, and it's great. And I think if the NCAA is going to keep that in place in the final 2 minutes, then I'm good with the rest of the 15 minutes of the quarter, right? So, or the rest of the 28 minutes of the half. So I like it from an initial read. I like it in the fact that we're talking about potentially reducing exposure for young players, young brains. I want to see how they're going to execute it, though, because I am concerned that they're gonna go too far. And I read the article about this, and it brought up the 2006 season.
I
And
saw that too. Yeah.
yeah, and it was the only time they've tried this, and it like killed offense. And they just went really drastic, and it killed offense. So I don't want to see that, but I do like this on the surface.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't know. I've always been against the kickoff rule,
That's a
and
weird one.
it is. Um, but at the same time, like I like seeing, and I think a lot of people as well like seeing something happen on kickoffs. And so when they move the kickoff to what, the 35 now, um, you don't have as many kick returns. And I get, again, player safety, exposure as they're framing it now. Um, but I think I think you're eliminating a major part of the game, and that could potentially be a game changer as well when you do that. Now, so now you're taking an extra 4 seconds, 3, 4 seconds off the clocks, whatever, um, by doing this. And let's just be honest here: how many kick returns were actually returned this year, as opposed to touchbacks? Um, Not many, not
Yeah,
many at all. Uh, and so now you're eliminating, let's just say, you know, 30 seconds or so, a minute or so.
I would
And,
say on average, you're probably killing 30, 35 seconds in a given game on
yeah,
kickoff.
that's a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a lot of time for an offense to be out there and potentially score,
yep.
if they need to, or vice versa. And so on this one, I don't know. On that one, I really don't know. Truthfully, I don't know why they're trying to get away from the why they're trying to be different than the NFL. Because let's face it, they're essentially a JV.
Yeah, they're a fucking feeder pipeline. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. And now
just
with
be, just embrace it.
the NIL deals and everything else,
Yeah,
you are essentially almost an NFL league, just
right.
not at that level just yet. But you basically follow the same guidelines. So why differ on those things? That's my grievance with
I
the
think
whole
it's
thing.
a sheer principle thing, man. We know how the NCAA is, right? It's a fucking pretentious group of douchebags, essentially. So I think that's probably why we're not going to be like the NFL. Well, nobody really cares, right? Like we're not going to. If the NCAA came out tomorrow and said we're playing by the NFL rule book, like cool.
Right?
Let's see you go play football. I don't give a fuck. Like
Yeah,
nobody's gonna say, "Oh, fucking NCAA, they're stupid. Why would they go by the NFL rules?" Like, why not? So I'm with you on that. I don't know why they insist on being different. Um, you know, yeah, it has to just be the NCAA just wants to be the NCAA. So
Yeah.
it's silly.
Yeah. Okay. So now that we got the time, so to speak, rules, and there are a few more, but those are a couple of the
The
key
big ones.
ones.
Yep.
Um, let's get to a couple of the bigger ones, and let's talk the potential penalties for faking injuries and possible fines. And what are your thoughts on this one?
I I laughed when I read it. Honestly, I like. How are you going to enforce it? You can warn people all you want, but like, how are you going to walk up to a kid who's holding onto his hamstring and be like, "Nah, you're faking it"? Like, I understand you could have a ref in the booth say, "Well, he was just walking fine," and then like lay down, like, but they're just gonna tell players to be more careful about it, like start limping and then go down, or
Mhm.
I don't know how they're gonna enforce it. I I know that there's coaches like Lincoln Riley and some of the guys that Holgerson and everybody that they coach these high paced no huddle offenses, and they're the ones that want this rule implemented. And we see enough of these offenses now that it is kind of the predominant thing in college football. But how the fuck are you gonna? You already have a hard enough job as an official. Now you've got to make a judgment call on whether somebody's faking fucking injury.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe a fine after the game if like the NCAA oversight committee decides it. But like, you're gonna ask the ref on the spot to make a judgment. I don't. Ugh. This
So
one, this one
yeah,
sucks.
I'm with you on this one. So here's my thoughts on it. And if because there are times where someone is actually injured and
Yeah.
needs to go off. Now, I agree with the one that's just standing there, that's just talking, and then
Coach tells him to go down.
yeah, and then all nonchalantly just kind of oops and just falls
Lays
down,
down.
and then he's out for that play, and then he's back in.
Right
Okay,
back in, yeah.
so here's my thing with it. Okay, so if a player is injured, okay, and he goes out, okay, he automatically has to sit out for one play under the current rules right now.
Mm-hmm.
Why not put it to where he's out for the rest of that series? Or if he is, if he's a better player, one of your better players, and he's not injured anymore, and you want him to be back out there, then you call a timeout.
You have to call timeout.
You have to call
I'm
timeout.
with you 100% on that. I had the initial thought of like, let's set an arbitrary amount of time, so he's got to be out for like 2 minutes of game time. But I
Mhm.
like the idea of the series. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And if you want that guy back in the game, you've got to call a timeout. I like that, because that, to me, that's going to eliminate faking injuries.
Exactly.
Because you're going to either have to burn a timeout, or you're going to have to send out an inferior player to be the guy to take the fall, and you're going to suffer for that play that he's in the game. So I'm with you. I love that idea. I love that. I kept thinking through like what would be the solution for this, and the timeout thing makes perfect sense. But I had gotten like, what would be a good arbitrary amount of time, right? I sat here thinking like, but then it makes way more sense to just say for that defensive series you're out,
Yeah.
or that offensive series you're out,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You're out for that series, or you call timeout to get him in. I'm with
Yep.
you 100%. I like
Yeah.
that. I like that a lot.
Too many times I think we see a player go down, and then all of a sudden he sits that play, and then he's back in there. And sometimes it's not during the final minute, or the whenever the offense is doing their hurry up offense or whatnot. But I think it has gotten out of hand within the last few years, like you said, and they do need to do something about it. But how they go about it, you know, how they fine, how they, make up this rule. I don't know if there is a real good answer for it, because at the end of the day, the NCAA is trying to put player safety first. And so,
That's where you walk a real fucking fine line trying to say somebody's
exactly.
faking an injury, right?
Exactly.
Like, oh, we really care about player safety, so we're going to introduce these time change rules, but then we're going to call you a pussy if you're faking an injury, right? Like, you can't do that. So
Yeah.
I agree completely. I don't know how the fuck they would enforce it, to be honest. That'd be such a shit show. If I was a coach, I'd be hot. I'd be hot as fuck if somebody tried to say my player was faking an injury if he wasn't, right? If I got busted, I'd be like, no, you're lying, or whatever. But like,
Yeah.
imagine them doing that and a dude really got hurt. Like, that's a bad look.
Wasn't it Penn State and Iowa this past year that Penn State was called out on faking a bunch of injuries?
Oh, that's right. It was, late in the game.
Late in the game.
I think it was against Iowa.
Yeah.
So,
it'd definitely be a tough situation to.
It'd be hard to enforce.
Yeah. So, okay. So, last bit of potential rule changes that we both feel very strongly about, and that is the targeting rule. As it sits right now, if a player is ejected in the first half of a game for targeting, they have to sit out the second half. They can return the following game. If you are ejected during the second half of that game, you have to sit out the remainder of that half and then the first half of the following game.
Yep.
So now with the potential rule change, it is if you get ejected in the first half, you're still ejected for the second half right now. If you get ejected during the second half, then you can, quote unquote, I guess, basically like not phone a friend, but basically an oversight committee. You take it to the oversight committee, and then they will look at it, and then they will deem if that was
malicious.
And to where then they can take away that first half ejection for the following game. So essentially, you're better off to get ejected in the second half of the game instead of the first. And I don't know about
save all your helmet hits for the second half.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't know when I read this, when I heard about it, I don't know about you, but the NCAA on this has done absolutely nothing in regards to the targeting rules. And what they're proposing on this, to me, is a complete joke.
It's fucking nonsense.
It's stupid.
Absolute nonsense. That's essentially like you said it first, right? You're just incentivizing waiting till the second half to put your head down and hit somebody, right? Like, but you have to be able to win with that appeal committee or whatever. I don't know, man. This is stupid to me. This is posturing by the NCAA saying, "Oh, coaches, we're gonna capitulate. We're gonna try to help you out and whatnot." But it's nonsense. Like, this rule has been so incorrectly enforced in so many situations, but the NCAA refuses to go back on it and say they fucked up.
Yeah.
And again, it comes down to that petulance in the fucking NCAA ranks. Like, just own it. Let's figure out how to fix this rule. I think the NFL does a pretty good job with it, and they refine it every year on kind of what they're going to call. The NCAA, on the other hand, is just like doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on targeting, and they enforce it so incorrectly that you just like inadvertent hits to the head when it's just, inadvertent contact, incidental contact. Dudes are getting tossed out of games.
Yeah.
And they used to actually review it and overturn some. Now they don't even bother. I don't even know what the fuck they're watching under the hood. I say this about NFL replay. I'm going to say it about college replay now. I don't know what the fuck they're watching under the hood, because it ain't what I see at home on my couch. I could promise you that.
Well, and this is where, and I know we were gonna get heated on this because it's something that we both feel very strongly about. But you have the NFL has their rules expert. They have New York, okay, to where they're calling in and whatever. NCAA, you are a multi-billion-dollar industry here. You can do the same fucking thing.
Yep.
Okay? You can do the exact same damn thing and do it on the spot. That way you can overturn it if it is not malicious.
Yeah.
And it baffles me why they can't see that. Or if they do see it, like you said, just say we fucked up.
Yeah.
Okay. Here it is. We've learned from it. This is what it is now.
Let's fix the rule. Not just keep throwing like useless band-aids at it. Like,
yeah. And this is also where I like what the XFL and the NFL are partnering up to do.
That's going to be awesome.
I said it. I can't remember if I've said it on the Blitz before, but I know I've said it to a couple of my buddies before. When the XFL was on and they were doing a replay, you were right there with them.
You heard what they were talking through.
You were exactly. Yep. You were getting walked through what they were looking
at. And I'll tell you right now, the XFL season got cut short, but they got it fucking right on replay. When there was accountability for the person doing the fucking review, they got it right.
Exactly.
They got it right. And I'm not saying they got it right because they agreed with me all the fucking time on what I'm seeing on the TV. I'm saying they got it right because I can fucking see it. I can see it right there, and they're talking through it, telling you what they're seeing, telling you what the rule is, getting input from the rules official, all that shit, man. That needs to happen in the NFL. I want to know. Listen, if you're watching porn, just put it on my TV. I'd like to see what porn you're watching because you can't be watching the fucking football game. I promise you that. You can't look at that and see it so differently. There's no chance.
You said it just right there. Like, you are getting walked through what the ref is seeing. You're seeing what the rules analysis. You're getting walked through step by step. So if you misinterpret what the rule is saying, they are right there telling you what the rule is saying.
Right.
So you can better understand what the rule and what the refs are talking about to make that decision.
Yep.
And it's
absolutely
100%. That is what the NFL, the NCAA, absolutely 1,000% need.
Yep. Absolutely. I love what the NFL and XFL are going to do too.
I do too, actually.
Testing out rules, testing out new equipment, testing out different, competitive changes and those sorts of things at the XFL level. I think that's awesome because we're going to be able to see it before they fuck the NFL game up and see how it works, right? Yeah. Or if we're going to see things that are going to improve the game, right? Exactly. I don't want to just be negative all the time, but we can see if you put it in the game in the XFL and it makes the game worse, we're going to scratch that, move on to the next thing. It's not going to make it to the NFL level. I love that. Yeah. And it's a great survivability platform for the XFL to have the NFL support going into this second revival of the XFL.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said just a little bit ago, that 2 years ago, the XFL was cut short due to COVID. I'm so glad that it's coming back here this next year. So
they got some star power behind it too. And just Vince this time.
Yeah.
They got some star power.
You got The Rock. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So we talked a little bit about some potential rule changes. We're going to take a quick 30-second sponsor break. And then when we come back, we will talk our top 10 projected picks pre-combine. So first sponsor break is brought to you by PocketParaClub.com. Pocket Para Club, club number 26881. PocketParaClub.com. right, we're back, and that sponsor break was brought to you by PocketParaClub.com. Pocket Para Club, club number 26881. All right, we're back. Tailgate Trash Talk, and we're going to talk a little bit here on our projected top 10 picks of the NFL pre-combine. So, Gary, I'm going to let you take the floor first here with your top 10.
All right. So this is what I had pre-combine. Aiden Hutchinson going to the Jags. I thought the Jags were going to be really focused on an edge rusher. And then as the combine went on, I don't want to spoil it too much. Some of these definitely changed, looking at some moves teams made and moves that players made at the combine. But then I had Kayvon Thibodeau, then Kenny Pickett to the Texans, Ikem Ekwonu to the Jets, Evan Neal to the Giants, Charles Cross. A lot of offensive line, very offensive line heavy, top 6 picks here. And then we get to some of the skill players on defense. Ahmad Gardner, Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley Jr., Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame. Really, really big on him as a safety prospect. And then Chris Olave, I still have him ranked as my number 1 wide receiver after the combine. I think that dude is a legitimate playmaker at the next level. What I saw from him at Ohio State, if he slides to number 11, now that Washington has traded for fucking Carson Wentz,
dude,
I would love to see Chris Olave across from Terry McLaurin, though. So I'm still really big on Chris Olave, even after the combine.
Yeah, and I think I have him in my top 10 as well. Yeah,
you ain't kidding. 50 mil. Woo!
Oh, is that what he actually signed?
Rodgers, 4 years, 200.
Okay. Wow.
Woo.
Dang.
Yeah.
Hey. Oh well. Good for him. Good for him. But going back to Chris Olave, and I hate saying it because it's Ohio State, same and everything else. But man, gotta give that kid some props. Yeah. Like that dude is a baller, and I think in the right system and the right quarterback, obviously, Commanders. Yeah, you might need another quarterback there to but in the right system. There we are again. Commanders. I don't know.
Exactly. I like him. I don't know if it's the best landing place for him.
Yeah, but I think he's gonna do some big things in the NFL. The kid catches anything that's basically thrown his way. Yeah. So
you aren't kidding.
Yeah. So for the most part, I want to say we're
pretty close.
I think we're pretty close. Let's pull mine up here. Got Evan Neal, Alabama. I think you had Hutchinson, didn't you?
I had Hutchinson up top. Yeah, you've got a couple guys in your top 10 that I didn't. I'd like to see those guys.
Yeah, so I had Thibodeau from Oregon going second. Then I had Hutch going third. I was kind of mixed back and forth on this one to the with the Jags and the third pick there to the Texans. And I still think, depending on what the Texans, hear this coming Friday, with everything involving Watson, I think that's going to play a big part in everything as well too, obviously. But then I have Hamilton. To be honest with you, I really didn't start looking at him until probably mid-season. It might have been that Cincy game with him. But like you've been saying it all year with Notre Dame and their defense, they got some studs there on the defensive side of the ball, and he was one of them. But then I got Ikem Ekwonu offensive tackle from NC State. I got a center from Iowa.
I like the love for the center though.
You know,
He's fucking phenomenal.
And
that's really high, but
it is really high. Yeah, and it's a bit of a stretch. It's a bit of a stretch. But yeah, it's, if you look historically speaking on Iowa offensive linemen getting drafted in the NFL, I wouldn't say it's too far of a stretch, but I know it's definitely a reach for sure. But it could happen, you know.
Yeah.
Kick and ball.
Yeah.
Then I got Stringley, cornerback from LSU. This one's also another stretch here, bud. George.
I like this though. You know who he reminds me of, and I hate it because he also played at Purdue. Ryan Kerrigan, who was a fucking stud for Washington for 8 years.
Yeah.
Karlaftis has got that same motor. So it ain't a stretch. I don't think Karlaftis gets out of the top 15. I think he's got that level of talent. He showed out at the combine that he's athletic enough. Yeah. And his motor on film is just unbelievable. So
yeah, I truthfully, I don't think he would. I think he was probably a top 20 draft pick going into the combine. Yeah. And obviously with the combine, I think he definitely improved that to, like you said, at least shouldn't get out of the top 15.
Yeah, for sure.
Then I have Pickett there at 9, going to the Denver Broncos. It would have been, yeah. Now obviously that's thrown out the window. And then I have David Ojabo, edge from Michigan, going to the Jets. So, I'll tell you this real quick, okay? Because I told you, we talked a little bit, maybe it was last episode, or it might have been one of the Blitz episodes, and we were talking draft picks, okay, and our top 10. And I hate this for you because you just got a quarterback today. But who did I tell you was my quarterback of choice going at number 11?
Yeah,
to
Malik Willis, man.
Malik Willis.
Yeah.
So now with everything that's transpired, I hate that for you, but I think that would have been a great pick.
I think there's still a possibility because I look at Wentz's contract and there's zero dead money after this year. So yeah, they would have given up a couple of draft picks, but if they're looking for a guy that they can get a rookie like a Malik Willis and give him a year, that dude has a ceiling that it's the Vatican, right? Like the ceiling of the Vatican. Like his ceiling is so high because of how just ridiculously athletic he is. I wouldn't be upset if they traded for Wentz and then went and got Malik Willis as the quarterback of the future, because they've got Heineke in-house who can work with him, teach him the system. He can teach Wentz the system. I wouldn't be mad at all if they went and got Willis, because we've got to swing for the fences at some point. And this Wentz move feels desperate. It feels like a coach who's trying to posture to save his job. So we've got to swing for it at some point. I'm okay if they go ahead and draft Willis if he's there at 11.
Sure.
I'm okay with
it. Sure. Okay, so that's our top 10 pre-combine. So let's talk about our post-combine top 10 projected picks. But before we do that, let's get to another sponsor break, and we'll be right back after 30 seconds. And this sponsor break is brought to you by Excel Constructors out of Overland Park, Kansas. excelconstructors.com for all your construction needs. That little sponsor break was brought to you by XL Constructors, xlconstructors.com out of Overland Park, Kansas. And if you need to contact Mr. Ryan Trotnick with xlconstructors.com.
He's in the chat.
He is in the chat. Thanks again for tuning in, Mr. Ryan Trotnick. We appreciate it. Mr. Gary Free here again. Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us once again. So we're talking combine. We had our first top 10 projected picks pre-combine. So now let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah.
And after we saw the combine this past weekend, let's see who our winners and losers are as far as did they move up or did they move down. So Gary, let's see your top 10 pre and now your post.
Yeah. Evan Neal was a big winner.
Yes, he was, bud. Yes.
Jordan Davis also another big winner. Got himself into the top 10, and man, dude, running a 4.78 when you're 6'6", 340 pounds. Woo! That dude was trucking.
Yes, he was.
He's gonna anchor a defense for a long, long time. So, and I, unfortunately, I believe I have him slotted right now. Yeah, it's crazy, Dad. Yeah. That dude was cruising. I believe I have him slotted to the Giants with this post-combine draft. So
who's that? Who do you have going to the Giants?
Jordan Davis, I believe. Or no, Charles Cross I have going to the Giants. And I think Jordan, do they have 5 and 7?
Who, the Jets?
The Giants.
Giants have 7 and 5. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I do have him, and I have Charles Cross. So anyway, Evan Neal is the biggest winner here. Moves from I had him going at 5 initially to the Giants. Now I have him going number 1. Now, in my defense, I put this together before the Jaguars franchise tagged Cam Robinson. So I may be wrong on this one. I'm just going to float that out there. They may decide to go defense as I originally had them going, but I did this before they tagged Cam Robinson. Evan Neal is every bit the offensive lineman that we thought he was at Alabama, and then some. Like his build, like that picture that you sent me of him next to Vince Wilfork.
Oh my God.
He's like the Aaron Donald of the offensive line.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up because I forgot who you made that reference about.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
Yeah, if he can do what Aaron Donald has done in the
right.
NFL and be as fit as Aaron Donald, because Aaron Donald is freaking cut.
He's a monster, man.
Like that dude's on a different level.
Yeah. And Evan Neal looks the part. He was a dominating offensive lineman in college. So I moved him up to 1, Hutchinson down to 2 to the Lions. This one I debated really hard because I know the Texans really need offensive line help, but I stuck with my guns here that if they don't go quarterback, and I don't think they're going to now because there's rumors that they really feel good about Davis Mills. And I don't know that Kenny Pickett is quite the number 3 pick. I'm going to stick here. I'm going to go Kayvon Thibodeau because that's where I thought the Texans would go if they didn't go quarterback. Good high motor, high potential edge rusher here. There are some questions about his kind of love of the game, but he's so good that it's hard to pass up on a guy like that. Kwanu is still going here at number 4. The Jets need offensive line help bad in front of Zach Wilson, man. They need it bad. Charles Cross, I have him going to the Giants now that Evan Neal has moved up to 1. They need offensive line help like nobody's business.
Yeah.
I slotted Kenny Pickett in here. I think the Panthers are going to miss out on all of the free agency quarterback lottery.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to want to get a guy who's young, right? Obviously a rookie, but he's the most ready. And I think that's what they need there in Carolina. And then Jordan Davis, another big winner after the combine. And just seeing that guy with his just raw, unbelievable athleticism at that size. And just after obviously seeing him play and dominate this past season, it's not a stretch that the Giants would grab a guy that's going to anchor their defense for 10 years. And I hate that because it's the Giants, but
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Right there with you.
And then I moved Garrett Wilson up, and I made this determination
Yeah. So
not
what
because of what I think of him. I moved him because of what I think that everybody else thinks of him. I think
sure,
everybody has this feeling that Garrett Wilson is
is going to be
far and away the
yeah,
best receiver in this draft. I don't believe that though. But the
yeah,
Falcons do need a playmaker, especially now with the Calvin Ridley news
Ridley.
that he'll be missing the season. Obviously, they traded Julio. They need to replenish that cupboard of wide receiver talent, pass catchers. And then Trayvon Walker, D lineman from Georgia, another guy that went and just murdered the combine, made good on everything we thought he was last year at Georgia. And then I kept Olave at 10. That's a guy that they hit a home run last year with Elijah Moore. And
Yeah.
you put a Chris Olave on the opposite side of him after getting an offensive lineman higher up in the draft here. And I think the Jets immediately make that offense fit for Zach Wilson and put him in position to succeed. Now, whether he succeeds or not is, I'm not making that call right now, but you put a stud offensive lineman in front of him and you give him a pass catcher like Chris Olave. I feel like the Jets have to feel really good about where their offense is going, assuming they're still as high on Zach Wilson as they were last year.
Yeah, and if they can get some offensive line help.
Yeah,
I mean,
man,
we said it earlier, we said it during the blitz season and everything. They need offensive line help.
Yeah.
And you said too, with the Giants, they need offensive line help too, especially if they keep Saquon.
Yeah.
There's rumors out there that they could potentially trade him, but he's been injured. Danny Dimes doesn't have any time to maneuver back there, but at the same time, I don't think he's a great quarterback. I don't think he's their anchor. But at the same time, the guy needs some time though to make some plays and go through his progressions as well too. So yeah,
hard to be successful from the seat of your pants.
Yeah, exactly. So I really think your offensive, your defensive line are going to be very strong in top 10, top 15 picks this year, just because this year your quarterback draft class isn't as high up as it has been in years past.
This is a good year for teams like the Giants and the Jets to have 2 top 10 picks.
Yeah,
you go replenish your offensive line, build your offensive line, get a playmaker. The Giants need help in the trenches on both sides, and I think they're gonna do it in the top 10 here. And I think I do think we're gonna see them sign Mitchell Trubisky. I think the Daboll connection is real, and they may go sign him. And it doesn't matter who's in there, right? You've got a quarterback that's had a rough start to their career, but if you can protect them and you can put some playmakers around them, that's how you rejuvenate or revitalize a career. And I think you have to start right up front. That's really where you gotta go and build. If you're the Giants, especially, but the Jets as well, with that young quarterback, they've got to protect him.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. So that was your post combine projected top 10. I'm really gonna throw you.
Yeah, I know you warned me.
I warned you. I warned you, and you're gonna see it. Gonna see it, and man, I don't know what it is about this guy. I really think it could happen. Okay. And I don't know if I'm just trying to really talk myself into it and, really believe it. But I really think that this is a very good possibility. And I think because of who he is going to, I think it's like the rules are not on the table. even though with who he would be replacing or them getting rid of to make this happen. I think it's a good possibility. So I'll put my top 10 up here, and
I think I know.
Let's hear your pick first.
You have Malik Willis going to Seattle?
No, but that's it. That's a good one.
Okay. Okay.
But
Oh. Oh. Wow. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Nice.
I st- so
Hey, that makes sense, man. They have to at some point, right? They have to at some point get their quarterback. And if it's Malik Willis, it's Malik Willis, man.
yeah, and I think I really don't think that Goff is the answer in Detroit. I'm really curious to see or to hear what Flint has to say about this.
Yeah.
Would he be happy with it being a Lions fan? Um, but man, just I don't know what it is about him, but and
He's
I spent
special.
he seems like he is special exactly, and we didn't see a lot of him because he played for Liberty, but we did see highlights from him, and then what we saw at the combine with him, and it wasn't just what he did inside the combine, it's also what he did
Yeah.
outside the combine too. That to me, it shows so much about this guy's character as well too as how he is as a person
Yep.
outside of the game of football.
Absolutely.
Um, and so when you have a guy like that, it's hard not to like the guy. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, I got Aiden Hutchinson going number one. He moved up from number three for me, and this isn't a shade or anything at Neil, because I had Neil at number one, and Neil obviously, you know, did awesome at the combine and everything, but it's more I think of what the Jags need.
Yeah.
And so that's why I moved Hutchinson up a little bit. Malik Willis, number two, to the Lions. I know everyone's going to talk about, uh, you know, Goff's contract and what the whole deal, the trade and everything between uh, the Rams and the Lions and what people gave up and gotten for him and everything else. I really think that this is a good possibility, and especially how he performed at the combine, and just him as a person. I think made a lot of waves in the GMs, in the owners' eyes, and coaches' eyes at the combine this past weekend. So I have Malik Willis, quarterback from Liberty, going number two to the Lions on this one.
And the
Uh,
Lions are in a good place, right? If they do want to make a move like that, if they love him and they think his ceiling is where they need it to be for the guy for the future, because their salary cap situation is fine, even with Goff's contract. Obviously, that's going to come off the books. I think they've got one more year
one
before
more
they can
year, I
really
think.
make a
Yeah,
cut.
yeah,
And you give him a year to just kind of learn what the NFL is about,
yeah.
show off in practice, get him some playing time at the end of the year. Because I don't think anybody believes that the Lions are going to be a playoff or obviously not a Super Bowl contender, but they're not a playoff contender this coming season. So obviously the end of the season you could get him on the field in some games that not that they don't necessarily mean anything, but it's valuable reps for a young guy. So I like it, man. I think it makes sense. I don't like it because I would like him to be in Washington, but
Sure, yeah, and yeah,
I like that fit though. It makes sense.
yeah. So, man, wouldn't that be the shit if he fucking did get
Yeah,
drafted by
man.
the Lions?
That'd be crazy. And I think prospects would be up for our boy Andy.
Yeah, exactly. Number three, to the Texans, I have Ikanu, uh,
Yeah.
offensive tackle, NC State. Um, yeah, they need defense as well. So you could throw in, you know, uh, Kayvon in there, or even some cornerbacks as well too. But I think they're going to go offensive line help here. I do think that uh, Watson is going to be the quarterback. Well, could be the quarterback for him after this week. Depends on if they're going to trade him or not. But number 4 to the Jets. This is where I have Kayvon going out of Oregon. I for some it fits. You know, that going from the green and yellow and then flying across country and going to the white and the gangrene there of the Jets. They need defensive help and they need offensive help. So you might even be able to flip flop 3 and 4 for me on this one. I got Neal going number 5 to the Giants. If he drops to number 5 and the Giants don't take him, the Giants I think are cursed.
Yeah.
Because if they don't take him, there's something wrong with whoever's doing their draft picks in this one. Unless you know they draft a quarterback, but at the same time, you have a quarterback, you have a new offensive, you have a new head coach and everything. It makes sense that stay with your quarterback for one more year, get him some help. You have Saquon Barkley back there. Get him some protection as well too. So if Neal is still there at 5, they have to take him.
Yeah, for sure.
6 to the Panthers. I got Charles Cross going, Mississippi State. 7, the Giants going defensive help here. I'm going Ahmad Sasgadna from Cincy. I thought he had a very good combine. A lot of talk about him.
He confirmed a lot of his game film at the combine.
Yeah,
his stats are nuts too. He allowed like 13 completions in his collegiate career. Like, it's insane.
Yeah,
how nasty that dude was in man coverage a lot of the time too.
Yep,
he's filth. He confirmed a lot of things that you saw on film by going to the combine and being an elite athlete at that position.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. 8, Falcons, Trayvon Walker out of Georgia. There, get some defensive help. But I like your pick. You know, wide receiver, especially with I didn't take that into consideration with Calvin Ridley being suspended for the year and Julio Jones gone and all that. Did not take that into consideration. So I like your wide receiver pick though too.
I like the idea of an edge rusher though, right? Because they do need help there too. And I know like in free agency is going to dictate some of this. And Chandler Jones has been linked to Atlanta in free agency. So if they make that move, then, you know, obviously you reserve the right to revise your top 10, but they need an edge rusher. And if they fill that in free agency, or if they don't fill that in free agency, this pick makes sense, man. Trayvon Walker went to the combine and he confirmed everything we saw from him at Georgia too.
Yeah, for sure. Broncos, now that Pickett or that the Broncos have a quarterback, I think they go defense here. This one kind of depends as well on if they get Von Miller back as well too, because I think you could possibly put Von down there a little bit on the edge instead of being the linebacker. But I think the Broncos go defense here and pick Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State. He had a pretty good combine as well too, and rose his draft stock.
Oh yeah,
and then at number 10, the Jets going defense here with them and going Kyle Hamilton, safety out of Notre Dame. So he went number 4 in my pre-draft, and now he dropped down to number 10, but going to the Jets. So the Jets take 2 defensive players for me.
That'd be a nice stocking of the cupboards for the Jets too, with a defensive head coach. You know, getting a nice edge rusher, but also getting a true general at safety, a guy that can, direct the defense. And he went to the combine and ran slow. I was surprised to see his 40 time, but it's I don't. Again, we talk about the combine, right? And you see a guy run like that, and then you go back and watch the film, and you're like, nah, he's the rangiest guy in this draft, right? So like, that's a guy that you see at the combine who maybe had a bad day with his run, or maybe he's just not a 40 guy, right? We've seen Jerry Rice ran like a 4.6 40, and he ran away from defensive players all the fucking time. So like, some guys just play faster than a combine 40. So Kyle Hamilton, I think he's going to be a fucking stud in the NFL. Honestly, I think that he's a plug and play guy for 12 years at safety in this league. So I think the Jets would welcome bringing him in. So my dad asked that question, and I've had that conversation with several people over the last like 4 or 5 days, because that is kind of the point everybody brings up, is like, he wasn't playing, but he was still on a roster. He was still under contract, and that language is explicitly in contracts. Like, you cannot wager on football games. So he knew what he was doing. I know he was out because of like mental health issues, which is nothing to joke about or poo poo, but like, he knew what he was doing. I feel for the guy, because somebody shared a graphic earlier in one of my chats that like Josh Gordon got 6 seasons for weed. Ray Rice got 2 games for domestic violence and just shit like that. So like, it's all over the map when it comes to like these punishments from the NFL. So I get it, right? It's shitty to see a guy lose a season over fucking $1,500 too. It's not like he was wagering millions and like involved with the fucking mafia and shit like that. But in the same breath, like, it's explicitly in their contracts that they can't bet on games. So it sucks. It sucks that he's going to lose a season, but he knew what he was doing, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. So, but no, so those are your and my post combine picks there. It's gonna be interesting. It's definitely gonna be interesting to see where some people go, and it's also gonna be interesting to see how much of a factor Pickett's hands are really gonna come into play come draft night.
Yeah, it's curious, because like, it's things like that I question a lot of times, how these NFL GMs have jobs if it's those things, right? Like, Tom Brady, they knocked every physical trait that they could for the guy, but like, he was drafted as a catcher by fucking Expos. Like, you don't have a noodle arm and get drafted to play catcher in Major League Baseball, right? Maybe to play left field, maybe to play first base, but not fucking catcher. So like, and he played at Michigan out in shitty elements. It's no wonder he was so successful in New England, because everybody questioned his arm strength, but the guy could fucking wing it. We saw it when he played with Moss.
Yeah,
he was throwing 50-yard touchdown passes like it was fun.
Yep.
So it's interesting that these teams latch on to things like hand size and other kind of weird stuff. And John, that's a good question. They're probably going to take a fucking punter, to be honest. And we have one of the 3 or 4 best punters in the league, but we're going to go ahead and take a punter at number 11.
Appreciate you joining tonight, John.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, buddy.
So we talked some potential NCAA rule changes. We talked our pre-top 10 draft picks, and now we talked post combine draft picks. So before we get to our big announcement, do you have any closing thoughts on the combine or anything like that?
Not a lot on the combine. We've talked about it, right? You use it to confirm or identify things you need to go back and look at, for guys. And I don't have the film at my disposal, but if I'm a GM, that's what I'm doing with it. Dad, that's a really good documentary, that Netflix series about the point shaving stuff, and that's the sort of thing that they're worried about, right, with players and whatnot. And again, Ridley, it's $1,500, right? So
what's the documentary that he's talking
there's
about?
a Netflix series about point shaving. Um, it's I believe it's the Boston College one. It's one of the colleges that they are
Okay.
talking about the point shaving scandal. So
Okay.
um,
It's not part of the bad sports
I
uh
don't think so.
series? Okay.
I don't think, maybe that's the one he's talking about. I know they have one about the Boston College point shaving thing too.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it's the combine's fun, to see guys like Jordan Davis run 4.78s. So yeah, John had to get a poke in there about a Cincinnati guy, right?
Since the guy. Love it. I love it.
Yeah, Ritter's probably a day 3 guy. He might be a 3rd round guy, maybe. He's athletic. The team's probably going to see him as a potential career backup, something like that. I don't know if Ritter's got the skill set to be a starter in the league. He was fun to watch at Cincy, but yeah, we're going to fuck it up somehow. I trust in Ron to fuck it up.
Yep. For sure. For sure. So with that being said, we got a big announcement. But before we get to the big announcement, one announcement that that we're going to be doing this next year in the Tailgate Trash Talk season is Gary and I we're trying to make it to a few football games throughout the year, and I think we decided on either 3 or 4 football games to where we're going to go and tailgate with everybody and podcast from those locations. And our first game that we're going to this year was kind of brought on really on spontaneity.
Yeah.
Gary and I, we finally got to meet a few weeks ago. One of my good friends moved up pretty close to where Gary lives in Virginia, and we all got together, had some beers. The beers were flowing pretty good that night, and we decided that we're going to a football game, and it's going to be West Virginia and Virginia, September 22nd. So it's a night game. It's a Thursday. So what better way to kick off our tailgate trash talk season than a football game on a Thursday night under the lights, listening to Sandman. I'm stoked. I know you're probably stoked. We really haven't talked much about it other than really on the drive home that Sunday. The other buddy, he was like, "Hey man, I booked the rooms. Let's go."
Yeah.
Like he was like, let's fucking do this, and he booked the rooms. I got the tickets the other day. So we're golden there.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for that, man. I can't wait.
Buddy.
So if anyone else has any suggestions
for sure
on some good matchups throughout the season, we're all ears. This is one of 4 that we have down. So we're going to try and get out there and get to meet some more people and get some more following. So, but without further ado, Gary, would you like to make the big announcement?
Sure. So, we are introducing a new podcast into the Backyard Sports family. We did a lot of talking and kind of planning out for how we were going to manage the off season. Football has been our kind of flagship, right? The Backyard Blitz was the first real show we put together, and early on we tried to do a little bit of a roundup of all sports, but eventually it just evolved into the Blitz is football. We talk NFL throughout the NFL season, and then Stove and I were talking, hey, we like college football. Andy and Raul aren't really big into the college football scene, at least not in the way that we are. So we introduced Tailgate Trash Talk here. And then Stove and I also share a passion for baseball. So starting next week on Wednesdays, we are going to be talking baseball. And now I know what you're thinking. Baseball is not happening yet, right? MLB is kind of holding their own, holding themselves up and killing the fans here. But we've got a lot of off-season drama and new developments and things to talk about. And of course, if the lockout continues, we'll have plenty to talk about there. But MLB is not the only show in town, right? So we've got college baseball we can talk about in the meantime. But starting next week, Wednesday nights will be at 9 p.m. so that we can still have the tailgate talk every other Wednesday to keep things updated throughout the off season in the college football scene until next season kicks off. At 9 p.m., we're going to kick off the Rosenbaggers podcast, and we're going to be talking baseball. Stove and I both played college baseball, so we're gonna bring a lot of passion to it. But Stove actually has a buddy that's going to be joining us as well. He's a radio personality, so he should be able to keep us chuckleheads in line and bring some refinement to the show and really kind of show us the ropes on this whole podcasting thing and whatnot. So gonna be a great addition to the team, the show, and Ty is there. He's gonna be a great addition to the backyard family as well. So we will continue to talk about college football in the off season, but we are going to be introducing a new podcast to the family, and we'll be talking baseball.
Yeah, man. I can't wait to start.
Yeah, John, that's a good read. They might just not want to play April baseball.
yeah, exactly. But we got our Backyard Sports Media Shop website up with all of our gear, accessories, apparel, everything else like that. Now we got some Rosenbagger merchandise on there as well. So that is now available on the backyardsportsmedia.shop website. So next Wednesday, 9 p.m. And we're going to be doing the baseball podcast every week until baseball's over. And then we'll probably kind of do it like the tailgate and go every other week. But we're going to do it at 9 p.m. That way for when college football season starts, we keep the 8 p.m. slot for tailgate and then just roll into 9 p.m. time slot for Rosenbaggers. So we're excited about it. It's been something that Gary and I have been talking about for really about a good month and a half, almost 2 months, really. And with the help of some of you guys who commented on a name, we finally just went with one because a lot of things were just, hit and miss. And it was just one of those things where we needed to make a decision on something, just roll with it. So yeah, next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Rosenbagger podcast coming to the Backyard Sports umbrella. Can't wait.
Yes, sir.
So, Gary, any closing thoughts, remarks?
No, man. Excited to see how things play out here with free agency and the draft, and then of course, college spring ball is going to be starting up here soon. We're going to start seeing some spring games, and we're going to really be able to start getting into. There's always the quarterback competitions and the position competitions, and who's made big improvements with their recruiting class, and whose recruiting classes come in and really made a stamp early on in the the spring tune-up season. So it's going to be great to start to see some of that and have some real college football, not just the off-season stuff, but have some action on the field to talk about in addition to those things that are going on off the field.
Yeah, for sure. So can't wait. Yeah, Amy, appreciate it. Be there Wednesday. Without further ado, Gary and I, we salute everyone that joined us tonight. We appreciate it. You guys make it more fun, more interesting for us, and keep the conversation going throughout the podcast. So thank you for everyone that joined us again tonight, and be sure to tune in next Wednesday, 9 p.m. for the inaugural podcast of the Rosenbagger podcast under the Sports umbrella. So, Gary, I appreciate you joining again tonight, bud.
Appreciate you, buddy.
And yes, sir. And without further ado, thank you, everyone, and Good night.